Celtics, their home opener against the 76ers. It also so happens to fall on this guy's birthday. Happy birthday, the president of basketball operations, Brad Stevens, for the Celtics. Happy birthday, Brad.
Thank you.
Do we do cake? Like, what's the go-to?
Yeah, what is your thing?
What's the chocolate guy?
No, we just start a new season. We sit in traffic, start a new season.
Fair. Very fair.
So does everybody else here. You know?
That's right.
Maybe by the end of the night, we'll see. So we just, have been seeing Jaylen Brown, the hype of him, the leadership role that he continues to step into. What have you personally witnessed from him in this offseason translating into this season ahead starting tonight?
Well, I don't know if I look at it as this offseason. I was at an event with him a couple nights ago, and his birthday's later in the week, and it's hard to think he's 29. And when he came here, he was 19. So just watching him, he's always been talented, he's always been impactful, and he's always been, about a lot of the right stuff, right? And also now you just see all the experience that you add to that, and you can tell there's a guy that's really comfortable in who he is, where he is, and how he can impact everybody around him. Listen, we're going to need that, but I think that he understands that that's not necessarily going to be every night. It's not going to look the same every night. It's going to have to be what the game tells him to do, and his ability to read that and his ability to see that and make others better is probably going to be, people are going to give him a lot of attention. And I think that, he knows that each night his impact's going to look a little bit different, and that's part of leading.
Your responsibility is to build the best team you possibly can. You have challenges with salary caps, aprons, and all that stuff. But if you had a path, and then last year in the playoffs, Tatum goes down, you have to scrap that path, and then how do you end up with this iteration of a team?
I mean, the Tatum injury was obviously unfortunate, but we were probably going to be in a similar situation, whatever that meant, right? It was going to be, we're going to have to get under the thresholds, under the aprons, give ourselves way more flexibility. It's actually not just giving yourself way more flexibility to be opportunistic. It's also, you don't have no flexibility on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't the ultimate decider. Certainly that has an impact. And, like I said several times, we lost some real players, and the character of those real players was as good as it gets. So making sure that we brought in the right people at, a different age and stage and different level of proof to still surround what's a really good core, with Jason, Jaylen, Derek, Peyton, this whole group. Was going to be really important. This year we've got to find a couple of those guys that are on, kind of that minimum contract or right above that range that, haven't gotten quite that chance yet, that can pop and become, the next guys that you can really rely on.
Sure. Was there a common thread with those guys, with Josh and Luka and even Chris? I know Chris is more experienced than those guys, but was something about the way they play, something about just their style that made you think they're capable of replacing the guys that went out?
We just want high energy, highly competitive, good people will come in and work. When we get to the gym, they're already lacing their shoes up some days. When everybody's in the gym, you've got a good environment of work, and they are hungry to take advantage of this opportunity. You guys have been around the whole time I've been here, right? And listen, different Celtics teams take on different, they're all different iterations, and they take on, the identity. And the identity of some teams needs to be, like, I got a chip on my shoulder because people don't think I'm as good, or we have a chip on our shoulder because people don't think we're as good. And I think this team will take that on.
Was there one team in particular that maybe even when you coached that was like that? Like, I think back, one of my favorite teams was, when Gordon Hayward and Kyrie were hurt, that group was amazing. Is there any one particular team for you that was like, no, they didn't think we were going to be very good, but they had that edge, and you always would mention they're a team that New England could love?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And again, we're really lucky because we have a first team All NBA player. he's still here, right? He's like going to be a part of our team.
Yeah.
And, you know, ultimately, we're going to try to find some guys that can complement the guys that are on the court and complement him when he's ultimately back. You know, both Tatum and Brown in the last 3 days have mentioned the 17-18 team as, other than the championship team, the most fun run to be a part of, because they were young and it was like they were somewhat naive, you know, and it was just like, we're going and we don't really care and we're putting it all out there. For me, even before that, going with the Isaiah teams, and, you know, for me, when getting here and seeing us turn the corner with Evan Turner or Avery Bradley and Isaiah and, you know, Horford and Olynyk, like those were pretty special memories.
You also have a head coach that you not only have shown trust in, but extended. So it's personal with what you've been able to do with Joe and what Joe has been able to do with this team. How do you see his style of coaching evolve with some of these new guys?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing that this year does is it really forces you to think, how do you maximize this group? You know, the last couple years, it's been pretty obvious, you know, how we've wanted to play on both sides of the ball, and it's been very effective, you know, and even in his first year when he got, you know, when he was thrust upon the job at the very last minute, you know, it's been, you know, we had a formula, we had guys that really fit well together. And, you know, this year you got to create an identity from the start, but you got to be malleable enough to tweak it as it goes on, because we're going to learn some things. Everything we think we know after tonight, we're going to look at 2 weeks from now, and the post game will be totally different. It's why I told a couple of our people in our ownership group, I wouldn't get too caught up in the preseason. We've seen some things in the preseason both ways, and I learned my lesson about the preseason when I was like, man, we guarded Carmelo pretty well, and then we show up in the regular season and he torches us.
Joe hates the preseason.
You brought up Isaiah. I'm not sure how much you spend watching the social media videos, but he voiced that sort of intro. Like, what kind of memories does that bring back for you? And could you see this team taking on shades of that, of finding their own identity and going to a higher level?
Each team has to find the best version of themselves. And when you don't have guys that have been there, done that, they have to prove they can do something at an NBA level exceptionally well. And we got to find those things, and we got to soar with them, and then we got to realize how to manage the other stuff, right? But the chip on the shoulder and that mindset is got to be a part of it. And I think that's the way it is with the great teams. And if Isaiah Thomas's team was picked 15th or 1st, he would have been the same way. And, you know, and we've had other guys like that, right? I think Marcus was a lot like that. And I think Jaylen Brown's a lot like that. You know, a lot of times the best players don't talk about the chips those guys have.
Yeah.
But Jaylen takes everything as a challenge, and this will be a heck of a challenge like any other year.
It's great to see Jaylen available here tonight. The crowd got up for him, just seeing him be out there on the parquet.
Helps.
Yeah.
What do you give Brad Stevens for his birthday? What do you win? Like, what do you?
I don't think there would be anything better than beating the 76ers.
There you go.
Boom.
Boom.
Mic drop. Brad Stevens, everyone. Brad, thank you so much for your time. Happy birthday.